Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Well, my first guest this morning is Niall O'Gorman of MarketSizer. MarketSizer helps SaaS businesses to acquire, retain and grow their customer base with real-time competitive subscription insights. Niall, you developed your e-commerce skills in both iOmega and Gateway, but provide us with an insight into how you entered the world of startups.
Good morning, Karl, and thanks for having me on the show. So in 2007, I got my first taste of working within a startup, but it was really a scale-up because it was a North American entity called Channel Intelligence, which ultimately was a precursor to Google Shopping because they were acquired by Google Shopping in 2013. And after a couple of years, I was approached by CNET, so CNET.com. A lot of people will be familiar with the tech review site, but there was a little-known division based out of Switzerland, which was all about content acquisition from large brands like Samsung, anybody who had kind of products which would need some kind of technical descriptions or detail, which we would then package as a service, which was a kind of early SaaS product. And having that, taste of startup life, founded a channel site back in 2012 with John Beckett and Kieran Dunn were the two Irish co-founders. And that business was a similar take on Channel Intelligence, which was the where-to-buy platform, but ultimately over the last 10 years has branched out not only to be servicing hundreds of global brands within the kind of consumer electronics, domestic appliance and white goods space for their where-to-buy, where-to-find services on their brand properties and across all their media, but also digital shelf and shoppable media. And then around 2022, started to look at the potential for maybe starting up a new business because I had a passion for a number of years from being responsible within Channel Site for the kind of competitive intelligence and all the due diligence and market sizing any time that we were looking to go for a funding round. So whether that was a formal VC funding round or a debt financing round or a market entry exercise or a new product launch exercise, I was the one responsible, along with support from a number of the team members, of coming up with all those market analysis and those, a defensible position, which would then stand up against scrutiny from venture capitalists or the internal management team or the product teams and the market itself, ultimately, when we would go to market with the marketing and sales team to see if we got traction on those products.
So where did the idea originate for MarketSizer?
I would have started with what we would call today a glorified super Excel sheet back in the early days, but over time would find ways to, automate some of the processes that were involved in gathering all that data and processing that data. So by the time we got to 10 years later, a lot of the elements had been fully automated using a lot of crawling, third-party data sets in order to create those assessments, which in one sense were used for kind of traditional market sizing and supported those kind of venture capital rounds. And we had raised about 20 million at that stage, and I had been the one responsible for creating that kind of defensible analysis and gone through that process a number of times. And then on the other side, we had started to leverage that data set as kind of an always-on continuous assessment or competitive intelligence versus all the major players in our space, right down to who are their customers, what kind of business, the size of business, how long they had the business. And we were essentially predicting for our sales team and our marketing team when they should be reaching out. So there's no point in reaching out to somebody as soon as they've started as a customer with a competitor. Likewise, if they have just renewed with a competitor, there's no point in trying to sell them your solution. So there was a lot of analysis about predicting when was somebody likely to renew, and then working backwards from that with the sales and marketing team to decide when should we launch our digital campaigns, but also our SDR, our sales development reps or account executives to pick up the phone and reach out and try and, intercept and win that business.
And what sources are you relying on for this data?
So our business is primarily focused on servicing SaaS companies. And by SaaS companies, more specifically, we're talking about business which are selling a service which is generally implemented on your website, or there's some way for us to see a signal within your website that service is live. So whether that's a HubSpot, a Google Analytics, or a MailChimp, or any third-party service which is used by you on your day-to-day operations, we need to be able to see that installed on your side versus something like a LinkedIn, where you would go to that website to consume the value. So we can't see behind that login. Therefore, we're not able to kind of gather the intelligence and present that back in a usable manner to the customers that we serve. Where if you take eDesk, which is one of our customers, which are a global player in the live chat, help desk, and kind of AI support across marketplaces, and it's an Irish company, then we're able to see their implementation. So for all of the customers that they're implemented, we can see those signatures or those text signals by looking at the source code, and we can see the same thing for their competitors. And we would have, when we started with them, they would have looked for us to evaluate about 20 competitors that they could, I suppose, were initially focused on. But when we reviewed the data that we have, and we're tracking at present about 60 million signals, we saw there was about 63 relevant competitors within the live chat, help desk, and I suppose ticketing space. And so that's the way that we acquire the data, and then we're able to present back, when did that business start? Is it still active? And is there an opportunity to come in and disrupt? So converting from trials to subscriptions to churn subscriptions, enabling the marketing team, the sales team, and the client success teams to time their intervention, whether that's to acquire new business, thinking about expanding or growing business, or saving existing customers or preventing churn.
And how are you using this data within your own business, MarketSizer, to acquire new clients?
Very good question. Rather than us trying to boil the ocean and go after every type of SaaS company that exists across all the different types of categories, we're zoning in particular on live chat, help desk, ticketing, and customer service type applications. And within that, there's a couple of hundred SaaS companies that were taking what would be called an ABM or account-based marketing approach. And because we have all the data on themselves and all their competitors, then that generates a very warm entry and conversation. And we tend to focus on going to a top-down approach or to C-level, either a CEO or a C-suite executive, rather than a bottom-up approach, and do a lot of, I suppose, upfront analysis of that data that we already have access to in order to present something which is compelling, concise, and actionable by that team once we get in contact.
And as data is evolving at record speeds, how do you plan to bring this intelligence to the next level? And what will this mean for your customers?
A very good question. So if we think of just with the advent of AI and generative AI, everything is being disrupted on nearly a daily basis at this stage. So having access to the generative AI or those kind of chat GPT type experiences as a layer on top of your product simply isn't sufficient anymore. So it's very helpful to create a better experience and from a usability perspective. But the true value of your data now can be commoditized overnight if somebody else can use ChatGPT or generative AI in order to kind of acquire a similar data set or to create a similar experience on top of your data set or a similar data set. So the real differentiator comes from the data itself. And there's a lot of pre-work that's involved in order to kind of create a data set which is tuned and ready for usage within AI tooling. So the kind of critical differentiator is, one, uniquely sourcing the data, and then how you put that data together and present it back as an enabler for AI. Because AI itself and all those capabilities, it's easy for somebody to get off the ground quickly with a relatively low investment. But the real differentiator is the raw material that's going into that engine. And if that raw material is not good, well, then we have the old proverb of pour information in, pour information out.
And what is the SaaS apocalypse, and does it present an opportunity or indeed a threat for your business?
So if we think about AI and the impact that it's having right now and what is predicted to have in the future, the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs report for 2025 anticipates that by 2030, AI and other information processing technologies will transform 86% of businesses. This ultimately creating 170 million new jobs worldwide while displacing 92 million existing ones. Now, on the surface, that seems like a net gain of 78 million jobs, which sounds fantastic. However, there's ultimately going to be a period of displacement. So I think one of the most important things, which ties back to your own company with Chevron, is upskilling is going to be critical, and a massive opportunity within companies, whether that's in Ireland or abroad, to take the existing talent that is within your company and enable them through upskilling to look at leverage new tools, technologies, new ways of working in order to reduce the likelihood that people are going to be displaced or let go, and give them an opportunity to leverage these technologies to further their career, which ultimately is going to have a positive impact on your business.
Niall, talk to us about the occurrence of SaaS sprawl within an organisation and what impact it can have on a business.
Small business and even within large businesses, people are enabled with their credit cards to purchase solutions to get the job done. And with best intent, they're going out there and purchasing hundreds and hundreds of different solutions, either for an ad hoc task or using on an ongoing basis to get round challenges or bottlenecks within the infrastructure or the tooling that they've got access to, or just because it gives them an edge and it's not being provided by their employer, their company today. But the issue is, if you don't have visibility on that and you don't have any kind of controls in place, then that can turn into a very expensive problem down the line, not just from the cost of the service itself, but also the exposure and security aspects, with people tapping into third-party tools where maybe the same level of, corporate governance and security is not in place. And also from a compliance perspective, when you look at legislation like GDPR.
Talk to us about the scale that you have achieved with MarketSizer to date, and where do the next opportunities exist?
So we started back in 2023 and bootstrapped up until October of 23, when we took on from Enterprise Ireland the newly released program, which is called the Pre-Seed Start Fund. So we took on a 100k investment. We then, in May of 2024, took on our pre-seed round, which was led by Delta Partners, and follow-on investment from Enterprise Ireland, along with 3 angels. And we raised at that point €1 million, and that has been used to build out the product. We got eDesk as our first client around 8 months ago, and then since then have been signing up clients. But the main focus or drive for expanding the company and building up the sales organization is across 2025. So now, from focusing purely on the product and building out the infrastructure, now it's to build up the sales engine, launch the product in a scaled way, focus on mid to large SaaS businesses, mainly in kind of UK, United States, and across Europe, initially within that live chat, customer service, help desk environment, but then ultimately moving into e-commerce enablement platforms, payment solutions, and any solution that is essentially installed on the client side.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Niall O'Gorman from MarketSizer, and I'd like to thank Niall for sharing his insights with us this morning.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.